We decided to give the farm away. Now, this might sound ludicrous,
Everybody will think we're
but
nuts.
we're only tenants in our time. We want to work with the practical farmers of Iowa. There are people who might find this disturbing, but we think that the farm is best preserved by a group than any individual. There are real problems with today selling our farm to our son as my father sold his farm to us. Land values are ridiculously high. He ends up with a real serious burden of debt, regardless of the price. So I'm 60 now, but probably I was probably 56, 57. Then Irene and I started having discussions about what we think we should be doing. Literally a million questions and not know what to do. And I don't think we made any definitive steps in the early years, like 3 years ago, other than just having some discussions.
And I think the discussions kind of came natural to us because of our age and because of our experience with holistic resource management, which is kind of a part of the process of what we've been practicing for 20 years. And because we've been practicing it on a regular basis, we knew that this was a part of just another year of planning. So we knew that the time was that, we're in good health now, but maybe someday we won't be. And we really knew that we had to get things in place.
Yeah, and she's absolutely right. Holistic management has played a role and continues to this moment to play really the driving role in our generational transfer. And to people who might not be familiar with it, what that principle involves is that we have no idea where we're going if we can't envision that. And we envision where we're headed. We set definitive goals towards what we want to see happen. Once that's done, then we learn to judge our actions if they are sound towards our goals. And that principle would come back and would help us immensely in the journey of the last couple of years as we got into far more of where the devil is in the details and generational transfer.
After a year of thinking and bringing the kids in and sitting down and discussing together as a group what would be best suited and what our real true feelings was that what we came up with was our stated goal is to secure long-term protection for a true Iowa family farm that has significant conservation features blended into a working landscape. Our preference, but not our requirement, is to have it be certified organic. We want the farm to be known as the Frantzen Farm infinitely. Any Frantzen descendant will have the rights to visit the farm. And that I'll leave right there.
Yeah, with that stated goal, we could now go back and start to measure proposed actions against it. But my dad made some important statements, and one of them he said is that these assets are Dorothy's and mine. Dorothy's my mother. He said these assets are Dorothy and mine. We are not holding referendums amongst our children what we're going to do. We're going to make decisions what we hope is good for the long-term benefit of the farm, but we don't love our children any less because of these decisions. So he was saying there that literally directions have to be set, plans have to be put in place, but it's not a democratic fashion. We set a principle here in place that we've followed through in the rest of our generational transfer. And it is this: if our family members have physical activity in the operations, then you will benefit or share the risk or rewards in it. So our two daughters, we love them both, but the daughters are not around here. They are not physically involved with this business. They understand the business, they appreciate it, they understand it can help us out, but they don't share in the risk or the rewards. So our son ends up with an inheritance over here, which may be a lot, maybe a little. That's the risk and rewards, but he's also out there physically involved in the business almost on a daily basis. So there was a principle that they'd say fair is not equal and equal is not fair. Well, we had to divide the waters. We divided those waters on physical activity.
And that kind of goes back to the same strategy that Tom's parents, John and Dorothy, used when dividing amongst the 6 siblings.
Yes, that is right. Yes, Dad set certain principles in place and then followed them. We want to work with the practical farmers of Iowa. But the idea of deeding a piece of property over and then being able to use it back for our lifetime really caught our attention. And that was a spark for thought. And of course, we have a son to think about. And then we have daughters to think about. And property valuations are insane, the only word could describe them. So after much thought, and after a lot of real serious discussion, and after discussion with all of our children within this past year, what we have decided to do was to change our wills. So our currently will has stated that if I would pass away, my share of this 320 acres goes to my wife. If Irene would pass away, her share of the real estate goes to me. But upon the second death, the 320 acres is deeded to the practical farmers of Iowa. Now there's a governing document with this deeding of this land that has things that the practical farmers of Iowa are required to do, that we would like to have them do, and that they cannot do. And so we have our goals for the farm, we think, wrapped up in a document that guides what would happen to this land beyond ours. Now people are going to say, well, why didn't you just will it to your son? The message from the Pope in 1979 that so started this transition to the type of agriculture and really life that we've had was that the land is ours to be preserved for generation upon generation. He didn't just say just preserve the land. He didn't just say preserve the land for a generation. Generation upon generation. And we feel that that statement is the driving spirit. So in the original plans for generational transfer at the farm from the consultant, it is not sound long-term generational transfer. It might solve a problem for today or tomorrow, but it doesn't protect the farm long-term.
And not only that, we also looked at what would happen because our two daughters have chosen other careers and probably or more than likely would not in their future plan on coming back to the farm. And what if something would happen to James? Then it would end as far as it being the Frantzen Farm. He could die in a car accident, he could become disabled or have some kind of a health issue that would prevail him from being able to farm. And like Tom said, we aren't looking at just his generation. Maybe there might be a skip generation. Maybe we have a grandchild that would like to farm someday, but we want it to be continually preserved and kept in the hands of someone that's going to care for the land like we do.
A former Supreme Court justice said you can have great concentration of wealth and you can have democratic process. You cannot have both. We find the concentration of land ownership and the escalation of its worth as parallel forces that are being very destructive to rural communities. So we consider this to be a real big issue. And we can't change those trends that are going on, but we don't have to be part of them either. To put in place a generational transfer here that would divide this farm up and sell its assets off the highest bidder, complete conflict with our goals. When we had our children at the table and they realized they won't benefit from this run-up in land value because we're going to do, but they understood the love and the care of the land and the legacy of the land, they understood without any objection whatsoever to what we're going to do here. When we are no longer here, and if then it is in the board of directors of the Practical Farmers of Iowa. It is their property. And in this governing document, we prefer a Frantzen descendant to be the operators of this farm. If our son is here and shows that he's a viable operator, he rents this farm. So this is in the thinking of this document that the tenants here should have a basis for a profitable operation. They're not burdened with interest and principal payments on the farm. There are no rules that we set on what the farm has to look like down the road. But it was carved out of a chunk of tall grass prairie 100 and some years ago. And it has been changed enormously in many different ways, but that's human activity on the earth. But we believe that it should offer opportunity for young people in rural communities. Whether those young people are our descendants or not, if it would not be our descendants, we think the Practical Farmers of Iowa can find young people who are looking for opportunities in rural communities.